Lake Powell has always been a place where maps age quickly. Shorelines that appear permanent on one visit can look entirely different a few years later. Boat ramps that once touched deep water can end abruptly in dry sediment. Marinas designed to serve thousands of visitors can find themselves stranded far from the reservoir they were built to support. Across the American Southwest, few places demonstrate the changing relationship between water, infrastructure, and recreation more clearly than the northern reaches of Lake Powell. Recent events at North Wash have provided the latest reminder that the reservoir's shoreline remains in motion, and that the facilities built around it must continuously adapt to keep pace. A few miles from the remnants of Hite Marina, state and federal officials recently gathered to celebrate the opening of the new North Wash boat ramp. On the surface, the occasion marked the completion of a public infrastructure project. Yet the significance of the ramp extends well beyond a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Its construction reflects years of changing conditions along the Colorado River corridor and highlights the ongoing adjustments required as Lake Powell's boundaries continue to shift. For decades, Hite served as one of the most important gateways into this portion of the reservoir. Travelers arriving from southeastern Utah could launch boats, access services, and begin journeys into one of the most spectacular landscapes in the American West. The marina occupied a strategic position where the Colorado River entered Lake Powell, making it a vital connection point for boaters, anglers, river runners, and tourists. When Lake Powell stood near its higher elevations, the arrangement appeared stable. Water stretched deep into side canyons. Marina facilities operated close to shore. Launch ramps reached directly into the reservoir. Visitors arriving at Hite encountered a thriving recreational hub built around predictable access to the water. Over time, however, the relationship between land and water changed dramatically. Lake Powell is not a natural lake. It is a reservoir created by the construction of Glen Canyon Dam on the Colorado River. Its size and shape depend entirely on water flowing into the basin and water released downstream. During periods of abundant runoff, reservoir levels rise and extend farther into tributary canyons. During extended dry periods, the lake retreats, exposing terrain that may have remained submerged for decades. The northern reaches of the reservoir experienced some of the most visible transformations. As water levels declined over the years, the shoreline steadily migrated southward. Areas that once sat beneath hundreds of feet of water gradually reappeared. Sediment deposited during decades of reservoir operation emerged from beneath the surface. Former lake beds hardened under the desert sun. Long-forgotten sections of canyon became visible once again. Near Hite, the transformation proved especially striking. Visitors standing in the area today encounter a landscape that bears little resemblance to the one many longtime boaters remember. The Colorado River now occupies terrain that was once covered by the reservoir. Cliffs that previously overlooked open water now tower above a river corridor. The outlines of former shorelines remain visible on canyon walls, providing physical evidence of how much the reservoir has changed. These marks tell a remarkable story. They reveal where the water once stood and illustrate the scale of the retreat that has occurred across this portion of Lake Powell. The difference is not measured in a few feet or a few meters. In many places, it represents a complete reconfiguration of the landscape. The old Hite launch ramp serves as perhaps the clearest symbol of that change. Designed to provide direct access to Lake Powell, the ramp now extends toward a river corridor rather than a broad reservoir. Infrastructure that once sat at the center of recreational activity finds itself disconnected from the conditions for which it was originally built. Parking areas remain, campsites remain, buildings remain, yet their relationship to the water has fundamentally changed. The situation illustrates a challenge confronting land managers throughout the reservoir. Recreational infrastructure often requires years of planning, funding, environmental review, and construction. Shorelines, by contrast, can move far more quickly. Facilities designed for one set of conditions may become less effective or entirely unusable when water levels shift. For river runners emerging from Cataract Canyon, these changes created practical difficulties that grew more serious with each passing year. Cataract Canyon ranks among the most famous stretches of whitewater in North America. Located within Canyonlands National Park, the canyon attracts private boaters and commercial outfitters seeking multi-day adventures through rugged desert landscapes. Historically, many of those trips concluded near Hite, where participants could exit the river and begin the journey home. As Lake Powell receded, however, traditional takeout locations became increasingly difficult to use. The retreating shoreline created longer distances between the river and existing infrastructure. Access routes that once seemed straightforward became more complicated. Moving boats, equipment, and supplies required additional effort. In some locations, terrain conditions introduced new logistical and safety concerns. North Wash gradually emerged as one of the most important alternatives. Located near the river corridor, the site evolved into a critical access point for those completing Cataract Canyon trips. Yet its growing importance exposed limitations that became impossible to ignore. The existing takeout area often required boaters to haul heavy equipment up steep slopes. Retrieving rafts and gear could involve extensive physical labor. Commercial operators faced operational challenges. Private river runners encountered similar difficulties. The process consumed time, energy, and resources. For visitors finishing lengthy journeys through remote canyon country, the final stage of the trip sometimes proved nearly as demanding as the river expedition itself. Boats loaded with equipment had to be maneuvered over difficult terrain. Recovery operations frequently depended on winches, cables, vehicles, and coordinated effort. These realities persisted for years. Discussions about improving access circulated among various agencies and stakeholders as conditions continued evolving. Yet transforming those conversations into a completed project required navigating numerous administrative and logistical hurdles. Funding needed to be secured. Plans needed to be developed. Environmental requirements needed to be addressed. Construction methods needed to account for the area's unique geology and changing conditions. Progress came slowly, but the need for action remained clear. The completion of the North Wash boat ramp represents the culmination of those efforts. Unlike temporary solutions designed to address immediate concerns, the new facility reflects a broader recognition that the region has entered a different era. Rather than attempting to recreate conditions that existed decades ago, planners focused on adapting infrastructure to present realities. The ramp extends directly to the river's edge, providing substantially improved access for users completing trips through Cataract Canyon. Constructed to function within the current landscape, it reduces many of the difficulties that previously complicated takeout operations. Its opening carries symbolic importance because it acknowledges a fundamental truth about Lake Powell. Adaptation has become an essential part of managing recreation in the reservoir's northern reaches. For many years, public discussions surrounding this section of Lake Powell centered largely on what had disappeared. The shrinking reservoir attracted attention because of declining water levels, stranded infrastructure, exposed canyon terrain, and changing recreational opportunities. Images of abandoned boat ramps and receding shorelines became familiar indicators of broader environmental and hydrological trends affecting the Colorado River basin. The North Wash project introduces a different perspective. Rather than focusing solely on losses, it demonstrates how agencies can respond to changing conditions through practical solutions. The goal is not to restore the landscape to an earlier state, but to ensure continued access despite ongoing change. That distinction matters. The Colorado River remains one of the most important waterways in the western United States. Its waters support cities, agriculture, industry, ecosystems, and recreation across multiple states. Lake Powell plays a central role within that system, serving both operational and recreational functions. Changes in reservoir elevation therefore influence far more than scenery. Boaters depend on functioning launch facilities. River runners require reliable takeout locations. Tourism businesses rely on access points that allow visitors to reach public lands and waterways. Communities connected to outdoor recreation depend on infrastructure capable of supporting economic activity. When shorelines move, those relationships are affected. The area around Hite provides an especially vivid example because the changes are visible across nearly every aspect of the landscape. Roads lead toward facilities built for conditions that no longer exist. Former marina areas sit far from open water. River channels occupy locations once submerged beneath the reservoir. Yet the region remains active. Visitors continue arriving. River trips continue operating. Recreational demand continues existing. The challenge lies in ensuring that access evolves alongside the changing geography. North Wash represents one response to that challenge. The project also highlights the complex interaction between natural processes and human infrastructure. The Colorado River has reclaimed portions of its historical channel where reservoir waters once stood. Sediment accumulated over decades is being reshaped by flowing water. New landforms continue emerging as conditions change. Infrastructure built within such an environment cannot remain static indefinitely. Roads, ramps, parking areas, and support facilities must be evaluated against current realities rather than historical assumptions. Decisions that once appeared permanent may require revision. Locations considered ideal in one decade may prove less practical in the next. This dynamic is particularly evident in the upper reaches of Lake Powell, because changes there often become visible sooner than in deeper portions of the reservoir. As water levels fluctuate, the transition zone between river and reservoir migrates across the landscape, altering access patterns and recreational use. The opening of the North Wash boat ramp therefore serves as more than a local improvement project. It offers a case study in how public infrastructure adapts when geography itself is changing. Visitors arriving in the area today can observe two contrasting symbols standing within the same region. One is the aging infrastructure of Hite, built for a reservoir that extended much farther north. The other is the new ramp at North Wash, designed around present conditions and future needs. Together they illustrate a broader transition. One reflects an era when water occupied a different position within the canyon system. The other reflects efforts to maintain access under circumstances that continue evolving. Neither exists in isolation. The history of Hite helps explain why North Wash became necessary. The success of North Wash, in turn, reflects lessons learned from decades of changing reservoir conditions. Each location represents a different chapter in the ongoing relationship between recreation and water management along the Colorado River. For visitors unfamiliar with the region, the scale of change can be difficult to appreciate until it is seen firsthand. Distances that once lay underwater now stretch across exposed terrain. Former lakebeds support vegetation and river channels. Shorelines shown on older maps may no longer align with current conditions. The movement of Lake Powell's shoreline is not a theoretical concept. It is visible across roads, ramps, marinas, canyon walls, and river corridors. Every adjustment made by land managers reflects that reality. The new North Wash boat ramp stands as physical evidence that access strategies must evolve alongside the landscape. It acknowledges that successful recreation management depends not only on preserving existing facilities, but also on recognizing when new solutions are required. Lake Powell's shoreline continues to move. Seasonal fluctuations, water availability, runoff patterns, and reservoir operations will influence where water stands in the years ahead. Future adjustments may become necessary. Additional infrastructure may need modification. Access routes may continue evolving. Those possibilities are built into the region's future. For now, the opening of North Wash marks an important milestone. It provides a modern takeout facility where one was increasingly needed. It improves access for river runners completing journeys through Cataract Canyon. It supports recreational opportunities along a vital stretch of the Colorado River. Most importantly, it reflects a practical response to a landscape that refuses to stand still. The abandoned facilities at Hite remain reminders of an earlier chapter in Lake Powell's history. The new ramp at North Wash points toward the next one. Between them lies the evidence of a shoreline that continues to shift across canyon country, reshaping both the land and the infrastructure built beside it. As long as the reservoir rises and falls, adaptation will remain part of life along the Colorado River, and the opening of North Wash has demonstrated that reality more clearly than ever. The significance of the North Wash boat ramp becomes even clearer when viewed within the broader geography of the upper Colorado River corridor. Unlike many recreational facilities that remain largely unchanged for generations, Access points in this region exist within a landscape that is constantly responding to water movement. Every rise and decline in reservoir elevation alters the relationship between roads, shorelines, river channels, and visitor infrastructure. While those changes often occur gradually, their cumulative effect can transform entire sections of the recreation area over time. For decades, travelers arriving at Lake Powell expected a relatively predictable experience. Marinas served as gateways to the reservoir. Launch ramps connected directly to navigable water. Maps and guidebooks reflected shorelines that appeared stable enough for long-term planning. Businesses, recreation providers, and government agencies developed facilities based on those assumptions. The northern end of the reservoir eventually challenged that perception. As water levels retreated, the upper reaches of Lake Powell became one of the first places where visitors could witness the transformation taking place throughout the Colorado River basin. Areas that had spent years beneath water gradually emerged. Old channels reappeared. Sediment deposits accumulated during the reservoir era became exposed to wind, rain, and flowing water. The changes were not limited to scenery. Transportation routes and recreational logistics changed as well. River runners finishing trips through Cataract Canyon often operate on carefully planned schedules. Equipment must be transported efficiently. Vehicles need adequate access. Commercial outfitters must coordinate large amounts of gear while accommodating visitors arriving from different parts of the country. Even relatively small obstacles at a takeout location can create delays that affect entire operations. The challenges that developed at North Wash before the construction of the new ramp became increasingly apparent as use of the site expanded. Retrieving boats frequently required significant physical effort. Steep terrain complicated loading procedures. During busy periods, congestion could add additional difficulties. What began as an improvised solution gradually became one of the most important recreational access points in the region, yet its infrastructure had not fully evolved to match that role. The completion of the new facility addresses many of those concerns by creating a more direct connection between the river and the transportation network, serving visitors above the canyon. While the project may appear straightforward from a construction standpoint, its practical impact is substantial. Improved access can reduce retrieval times, simplify logistics, and increase efficiency for both commercial and private users. Those benefits extend beyond convenience. Recreational access plays an important role in sustaining visitation throughout large sections of the Colorado Plateau. River expeditions, boating activities, camping trips, and outdoor tourism contribute to economic activity across nearby communities. When access becomes more difficult, participation can decline. When facilities improve, opportunities often become more attractive to visitors considering a trip. This relationship was frequently discussed in connection with Cataract Canyon as water levels changed. The canyon remains one of the premier river running destinations in North America, known for its dramatic scenery and powerful rapids. Yet the difficulty of completing a trip successfully does not end when the final rapid is behind. A reliable exit point remains essential. The North Wash project helps preserve that reliability. Its importance also reflects a larger trend occurring throughout the Colorado River system. Managers increasingly face the task of adapting infrastructure to conditions that may differ significantly from those anticipated when many facilities were originally constructed. Reservoirs, river corridors, and recreational landscapes are experiencing shifts that require flexibility rather than permanence. In some places, adaptation may involve extending boat ramps farther toward the water. In others, it may require relocating docks, redesigning access roads, or constructing entirely new facilities. North Wash fits within that broader pattern of adjustment. The contrast between Hite and North Wash illustrates this evolution particularly well. At Hite, visitors can still see evidence of the area's former importance. Roads lead toward facilities that once supported a busy marina operation. Launch ramps remain visible. Visitor infrastructure continues standing as reminders of a period when water occupied a much different position within the canyon. The site preserves a record of how recreation functioned during earlier decades of Lake Powell's history. North Wash, by comparison, represents a response to present conditions rather than past ones. Its design reflects the current location of the river corridor. Its purpose addresses contemporary access needs. Rather than attempting to maintain outdated patterns of use, it accommodates the reality of where visitors actually enter and exit the water today. That distinction helps explain why the project attracted attention from multiple agencies and organizations. The ramp is not merely a local improvement. It serves as an example of how recreation management can evolve when environmental conditions shift over long periods. The Colorado River itself remains a central part of that equation. Long before Lake Powell existed, the river carved its way through layers of sandstone, shale, and limestone across the Colorado Plateau. Its channels shifted over time. Floods reshaped banks and deposited sediment. Canyons deepened through geological processes, operating over immense timescales. The creation of Lake Powell altered those dynamics by submerging large portions of the canyon system. Yet the river never disappeared. It continued delivering water and sediment into the reservoir. As water levels declined in recent decades, portions of the historic river corridor began re-emerging. Near Hite, that process is especially visible. Visitors can observe the Colorado River flowing through areas that many people remember as open lake water. Sediment terraces stand exposed along the corridor. Vegetation has begun colonizing newly emerged terrain. The landscape reflects an ongoing transition between reservoir and river environments. Such changes reinforce the importance of adaptable infrastructure.